So the big thing I want to mention is there are times where internationally or domestically, food will surprise you. There's stuff in the food that you don't expect to be there. You're frustrated because it's there, and you don't find out about it until after the fact. But the biggest things I can emphasize are, number one, have your action plan. Like you notice I didn't stop. I wasn't like, well, I took action right away. I was like, all right, let me get this number down. Let me figure out what's going on. And then when I was debriefed, when I was chill, when I was relaxed, then I said, now let's find out what the hell just happened. It wasn't a preemptive, let's start digging. Like, it probably could have been good if I had looked into it sooner, but I was so mad at baseline that I didn't feel like it was a good time to even look into it. And ask, right? If you're not sure, hey, this looks like sausage, maybe do a little digging. And that was probably my own L right there, right? But you don't expect that sausage is just suddenly going to be loaded with breadcrumbs and brown sugar, right? Welcome to the Your Diabetes Insider podcast, where we take all of the mysteries of blood sugar control, focusing on nutrition, exercise, and any of the other 40 plus factors that may impact your blood sugar. If you don't know me, my name is Ben Zeal. I'm a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, strength and conditioning coach, and I've lived myself with type 1 diabetes for over 20 years. And I am here to share everything that I have learned in both my personal and professional experience so you can live that incredible diabetes life. So get ready and let's dive right into today's episode. What is going on? Welcome to today's episode of the Your Diabetes Insider podcast, where today I am super grateful for the incredible trip that Amelia and I just took for our 2-year anniversary. We got to go to the Balkans area of the world. So we spent some time in Slovenia, Croatia, Montenegro, and then we're able to experience all sorts of different things in terms of food, in terms of diabetes, in terms of just what these countries had to offer. So much hiking and also so many stairs. Holy cow. I genuinely feel like just roaming around was a workout in and of itself. But I learned a ton of different things. I want to share a few things with you. Some of them were just good reinforcements for me, and some of them might be new to you. But then also just some situations that came up that I feel like would be really important to mention, and stuff that, again, you may be able to learn from so you don't have to worry about mistakes that I made, and then also be able to be aware the next time you decide to go on a trip, whether it's domestic, whether it's international, whatever it might be. And again, when I say that there were so many stairs, just to visit some of these places, there were lots of fortresses, as I've learned, at least in this part of the world, and I'm sure in most of the world back in the day, 5, 6, 7, 800 years ago, or even longer, the higher up you were, it seemed like the more advantages you had. So all of these castles and structures were built into the sides of mountains. And I don't exaggerate when I say mountains. At minimum, they were like little hills. And there were times where we would legitimately climb 30, 40 flights of stairs, the equivalent of that, just to be able to explore some of these places. Just, for a casual, let's go to this castle and see what was inside type of thing. Like it was a landmark type of deal. But that being said, things that I learned, things that you can apply the next time you travel, you get a ton more activity than normal. And this comes into play for multiple reasons on the diabetes sides of things. But again, like I mentioned before, just the stairs alone were a workout, the stair equivalents, if we'll call them that. But in terms of overall steps, I tend to pride myself for the last, rough year and a half, couple years. I tend to average roughly around 10,000 steps per day. Is that a personal goal? For me, it's more so, did I hit my minimum threshold for me personally? And then can I push a little bit beyond that? But when I'm at home, I'm probably around 8,000, 9,000 steps. Some days I'll go up to 12, 13. So that's why it averages out to about 10. When we were gone on this trip, we were averaging, and I actually did the math on this, we were averaging 16 to 17,000 steps per day, which is a lot. Like that right there, and I'm pretty active at baseline. That right there is a 60% increase in activity over my norm. And so that's going to show up in a couple different places, right? That's going to show up with respect to the quantity of food needed, the energy, right? Because think about it. If you are used to eating, I'm going to put really easy numbers on this. If your body is used to eating 2,000 calories per day, you're suddenly 60% more active just from a standpoint of just steps alone. Well, your body's going to require more fuel to be able to keep you going. If you're used to 2,000, not saying necessarily you need to go by another 60%, but you're going to need a substantial amount of additional calories. In our case, we work out, because one of my wedding vows was literally find a gym no matter where we travel in the world. So we kept our normal workout schedule while we were away, also knowing that, food might be a little off kilter, insulin sensitivity needs to stay good. And so we're training like normal. I'm getting 60% more or more than that of my typical steps per day, and tack on the elevation and the steps. So you have a couple things that you have to think about. And if you're not consuming that additional food, what's likely going to happen is your body's going to be operating in a calorie deficit, whether you want it to or not. So if you're like, oh, I'm trying to lose weight, it could work out nicely. But your body's also going to say, where's the rest of it? I need more. Your insulin sensitivity is going to go through the freaking roof, and you are a lot more susceptible to having low blood sugars. I knew about this part going in. I knew that historically when we travel anywhere for that matter, we tend to walk a lot more than normal. So with that, right, because I'm used to that, I came in knowing my basal rates were going to get tweaked. I came in knowing I need to eat a little more than I'm used to. And, gratefully, coming back from this trip, my weight going into the trip and my weight coming out of the trip were pretty much identical, which is awesome because I increased my intake because I knew I was going to have to. But on the flip side, again, if you're not ready for that, your blood sugars may plummet. They may just go through the freaking floor. And then there's times also where, keep in mind, we're like, oh, we'll go to, there was at some point this cave tour. You go in this like cart and you go into this cave. It was really cool. It was really cold also. It was like 50 degrees out. But you go in this cave and you get this joint ticket where you can go to this castle, like the Pradjama Castle or something. I'm like, this looks really cool. Let's go to this castle. So we're trying to get there. And we're trying to get there before it like stops allowing visitors in, because we were right up on the border of when they were going to stop allowing groups to show up. And so we park and we're like, holy smokes, we have to go up this massive hill, absolutely massive hill. So we go up this massive hill. We're like, okay, this is great. Then there's a ramp to get up to this castle. And then it's a castle on the side of a mountain, literally built into the side of a mountain. And of course, this is castle. This is back in the day stuff. So there's like 4 or 5 stories to this castle. So we're going up and down all these stairs. Holy cow. And I was not expecting that. I was expecting, we're going to roll up similar to how this cave was. Maybe we go up a few flights of stairs, but I'm not thinking we're getting 15, 20 flights of stairs just by virtue of getting to the castle and getting to the 2nd or 3rd story of the castle. So I had to be prepared for that. I fortunately avoided a low. I ended up in the 90s, and then I had to take a little bit of glucose and was fine. But these things are going to happen. You are going to be more active. You are not going to realize that you are going to be more active until you're likely there, or you're anticipating it like I was and gratefully was able to make adjustments for the most part. But expect you're going to be moving more. Expect your insulin sensitivity is going to be crazy, and expect that you may need to actually eat more food than you're used to, which... Speaking of food, oh boy, this one was a fun one. I had quite the experience with Bosnian barbecue, and it was delicious, let me tell you. I still can't pronounce the particular type of sausage that it is. It starts with a C, and it has some symbols on it, and I don't even want to try to attempt to pronounce it. If you want to tell me how to say it, please, by all means. The stuff is delicious, but we got this plate it was Bosnian barbecue. We were in Slovenia. It was supposed to be one of the, better places, and it was a very good value for what we ultimately got. But there was some, I think they called it like a minced meat, so, burger type thing. And there was chicken, and there was this sausage, and there was other protein. There was all of this different, it was a colossal amount of protein. And then there was salad, and then there were some green beans. It was really good. But I'm over here thinking, you know what? I've had a lot of meals where I've had a ton of protein, a ton of fat, and relatively low carb. I should absolutely knock this out of the water. This should be no big deal. I'm so excited. This is so delicious. There was some bread. I will say the bread was freaking phenomenal. But took for the bread, figured everything was totally fine. And my blood sugar, I leave the place, I'm, like 160. I'm like, that's fine, whatever. We got to walk back to the hotel. We walk back, we're chilling. I'm, 150, 160. Life is good. And then out of nowhere, and this was, by the way, with a new site. So I'll get to this in a second. You know how much I've trusted my sites as of late. But new site, and I'm like, all right, this is going to be fine. I'm suddenly skyrocketing. Like, I'm talking, I went from like 160 to 290 in 30 minutes. And I know the G7 sometimes gets a little finicky. So I'm over here thinking, well, is it the G7's fault? Am I actually this high? Like, what could be going on? I'm not understanding this because I don't usually mess up on meals like this. Is it the site's problem? And I tested with blood and I was 290. I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe it shot up really quickly. Maybe, the red meat hit me faster, because sometimes that happens, to people periodically. The meat will hit them sooner than they expect. And I start dosing. And I start dosing again. And I start dosing again. And I'm not raging. I'm taking for what I expect to be the protein amount. And it's not moving. In fact, it actually keeps going up. And so now I'm into the 300s. And I feel like trash, because I do not like being in the 300s at all. I'm not usually there, knock on wood. I feel disgusting. I hate it. Everything about it is terrible. And what ends up happening? I am sitting there for what feels like an eternity. Absolute eternity. I end up yanking the site. Of course, the site was not good. And I end up changing the site to what I'm hoping will work. But now every single site is under a microscope, because the previous site didn't work. And now I'm like, could this site be working? Is it the site's fault? What's going on here? And with the pod, I love the pod. But the biggest thing with the pod is when you put in a site, if you're not sure if it's working, the whole thing's got to go. It's not like a different pump where you just replace the actual infusion set and the tubing stays and the insulin stays. So now that's under a microscope. And I'm absolutely paranoid, because I'm thinking, is it working? Is it not? What's going on? Needless to say, finally comes down. Next day, because, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. The next day, I'm like, you know what? This place looks good. We had an issue finding a place for dinner. Let's go back. So we went back. And I thought, too, from the day before, I was like, yeah, there was that bread. So maybe I just got behind on dosing for that bread. So this time, I didn't even have the bread. I didn't even bother. So F the bread. I don't need the bread. Just had the protein and the fat. Just had all of, the veggies. And this time, I'm on top of it. I'm like, I'm taking for some of this red meat up front. I've got this nailed. Everything's going to be great. We get back to where we're staying. And it's very similar. It's like 150, 160. I'm like, all right. I was on top of the dosing. My site's supposed to be working. This will be amazing. And the same thing happened. I shit you not. I shot up to like 280, 290, 300. And I'm like, you have got to be freaking kidding me. And so at this point, I'm livid, because it happened once. And for me, it's like, all right, it happens periodically to the best of us. But this time it happened again. And I was not having it. So I didn't rage. I did end up finally coming down, though I was getting more and more frustrated. And then the next day, when I was a little bit calmer, I decided to look into that specific sausage that I can't pronounce. Savapchi, something like that. I looked into this sausage. And I look into how some of the preparation is for this type of meat. And lo and behold, what do I find out? I find out that some of these meats are basted in brown sugar and contain breadcrumbs. And my question is, how in the flying F am I supposed to know that this is basted with brown sugar and has breadcrumbs in it? It looks like meat. It is literally just meat. You stick me in a Brazilian steakhouse where there's just, random steak, which I've been to, a handful of times in my life. There's a bunch of meat and a bunch of steak and nothing's basted weird. And I can handle that, no problem. I can be in there and out of there and never peak over 150. And you tell me I have a plate of barbecue where I'm eating like a half of what I'm used to at a typical place. And I skyrocket because there's breadcrumbs in it. Like, oh, it was so frustrating. And then couple that with the fact that one of those sites was bad. So now it's like, is it the site? Is it the food? What is it? So I blamed it on the site the day before and possibly the bread. So the big thing I want to mention is there are times where internationally or domestically, food will surprise you. There's stuff in the food that you don't expect to be there. You're frustrated because it's there and you don't find out about it until after the fact. But the biggest things I can emphasize are, number one, have your action plan. Like you notice I didn't stop. I wasn't like, I took action right away. I was like, all right, let me get this number down. Let me figure out what's going on. And then when I was debriefed, when I was chill, when I was relaxed, then I said, now let's find out what the hell just happened. It wasn't a preemptive, let's start digging. It probably could have been good if I had looked into it sooner, but I was so mad at baseline that I didn't feel like it was a good time to even look into it. And ask, right? If you're not sure, hey, this looks like sausage, maybe do a little digging. And that was probably my own L right there, right? But you don't expect that sausage is just suddenly going to be loaded with breadcrumbs and brown sugar, right? So sometimes it's just a perfect sequence of a bad site with food you don't expect. Sometimes it's just you don't know what happens, but expect the unexpected and know that food may have a surprise or two in store for you, and be aware, be on top of it. Something else. It's hilarious I say this next part after what I just mentioned in the last part of the episode with respect to what happened with my blood sugar, but try the local specialties. Even if you can't read the language, Google it, Google Translate, see if you can get an idea of what's in it. Now that I've learned my lesson from that, let's just say I did that a few times in the future. Unfortunately, there was nothing crazy and surprising that showed up. But when I had a functional site and I knew what was in the food, my blood sugars were fine. My blood sugars averaged exactly what they do at home. We were gone for about a couple weeks, and for well, the first, few days, everything got all jacked between the jet lag and then, of course, the situations I just shared with the bad sites. But once I got working sites, I had 2 working sites in a row. Yay. But once I had that next week of blood sugars were exactly the same as I have at home, if not even slightly better, because I was paying slightly more attention. So if you can't read the language, Google what's in it, Google Translate, try to figure out what is in it. You can literally take a picture of the menu and say, okay, what does this say? And it'll tell you exactly what it is. And you can start searching what's in these. What are some recipes that make this? So I have an idea of what goes into this, what ingredients there are. And that will save you a lot of pain, a lot of headache, and a lot of BS like what I went through with the non-functional site and the food that I didn't expect some of the, ingredients to be in it that ended up being in it in the first place. Another thing for you, driving is stressful. So we were in Slovenia, which is north of Croatia, right? We ended up taking a bus into Croatia, into Zagreb, picking up a car, and basically driving the entire length of the country. And just for perspective, I don't know how many miles that is, but let's just say that the first day of driving, I think we drove for about 4.5 hours. And then after that, every trip after that was probably, 2.5, 3 hours or so. So there was a lot of driving involved. And driving is stressful at baseline. Driving is stressful here. And I live in Florida, so it's like I'm used to crazy, right? There was some wild stuff going on this road. It felt like the Wild West. Like there were times where people were like, I was going plenty fast for the speed. And there were people rolling up on me. There were people passing me who were legitimately, and I shit you not, were legitimately going 110 to 115 miles an hour. I'm like, that is obscene. And they weren't going this in like little speedy sports cars. Like they were going this in a typical like Corolla type of thing. It was insane. But that made things a little more stressful. And I will say my blood sugars during driving, it rose for 2 reasons. One, we're sitting for hours at a time, which is not usually a great look. But second, the stress definitely affected me, for better or for worse. I'm going to be straight up. Like, I try to be a pretty safe driver. I feel like everybody says that, right? Everybody says they're an above average driver, and at some point you're average, right? But with this, the driving was stressful enough to raise my number by, anywhere between 40 and 8 points at different times. So when there were people who were just being absolute D-bags, my number was rising. I was going up. There were times I started the trip at 1:30 and I was leaving the trip at 2:10. I'm first one to admit that was 100% from stress. 100% from stress. And it sucked. And then, got out of the car, parked the car, and suddenly, my number went right back down to normal. It's amazing how that works with stress. But being aware of that, being able to have a plan. Hey, are you hydrating? Hey, are you going to be able to alleviate some of the stress? I'm even getting stressed thinking about this. Some of these situations were not pleasant, but definitely be aware. Stress can and will impact your blood sugar. Cortisol is a demon. So if you're not paying attention to it, you probably should start. If not now, in the very near future. And then another thing, and I have to mention this one, and this is a really big one too, is some of the hotels internationally, depending where you stay, some of them have a breakfast spread. So it depends where you stay. It depends on the size of the hotel. A lot of like the smaller hotels that only have like 8 or 10 rooms, they tend to do this. I think it's just a nice personal touch. It's almost like a B&B type of thing, like not Airbnb, but like a bed and breakfast where you wake up and they've got someone there. So in one of the places we stayed, like there was a lady who she would ask you pretty much what you wanted. And it was really nice. Like you could get a couple eggs, you could get, she made like crepes and stuff, but it wasn't anything crazy, but it was really nice and it was really convenient. You could go order that. But the bigger thing is some of these other places, they don't have someone cooking for you, but they just have a giant spread with like, hey, you've got hard-boiled eggs, you've got veggies, you've got fruit, you've got granola, you've got cheese, you've got different meats, all sorts of stuff that you can just kind of grab and go do what you want to do. There might be some, scrambled eggs available. Kind of think like a continental breakfast at a hotel, but just a lot nicer, right? And none of these places that we stayed at were like crazy high end, by the way. They were all just very normal places. We were fortunate for a couple of them to have the spreads. The big thing I want to mention is if you have choices, again, it's just like anything else, you can make it very blood sugar friendly. You absolutely can make it blood sugar friendly. There was a hotel that we were at in Montenegro, and that one was probably the most tricky because there wasn't a ton of protein options. But even there, they had some scrambled eggs, and they might have been sunny side up. Either way, they had some cooked eggs, they had some sausage, they had some cheeses, they had some meats. And what was hard is they didn't have a really lean protein option there. And then they had, all sorts of cakes and other fun stuff. But the big thing was with a meal like that, you can make it blood sugar friendly. Hit the veggies, right? Hit some of the berries. Get some protein options to keep your blood sugar steady. Try to find lean protein options if they exist. One of the places had cottage cheese. It was amazing. It's like, oh, I just got a cup and a half of cottage cheese. That was 20 plus grams of protein. That was incredible. I think it was a cup. But either way, plenty of protein just from that alone. Some of them had turkey. Some of them had prosciutto. Like, it all depends on where you're at. But you can make this as blood sugar friendly or not blood sugar friendly as you want to. It's the same thing as going to a continental breakfast, right? You go to one of these places, you're at a Holiday Inn, and you say, okay, cool, I can get hard-boiled eggs. You know, maybe they've got some sausage patties, maybe they've got some scrambled eggs, but they've also got Frosted Flakes and Fruit Loops, right? You don't have to pick the Frosted Flakes and Fruit Loops if you don't want to. It's not an absolute, oh, I must do this or else. It's more of a, cool, this is what the situation is, amazing. So the big thing I want to mention with that is, again, it's like anything else in life. You can make it as blood sugar friendly or not blood sugar friendly as you want, but most of them have protein options and you can do very well. Because my target is always at one of these meals, hey, where can I get 50 or 60 grams of protein? And I was able to pull it off. Even at the places that seemed really difficult, I was able to still pull it off. So when in doubt, go the blood sugar friendly route. And that was not meant to rhyme, but it worked out impeccably, didn't it? So again, with these types of things, be smart about it. Because again, like a Holiday Inn, you can go get the pancake or the waffle and the Fruit Loops and some chocolate milk, and your blood sugar can go to 350 and you'll feel like trash. Or you can try to be a little bit smarter. And I'm not saying to not have any of the fun stuff. I absolutely did. One of the places, the one that had the most fatty options, one of those places, they had like, it was almost like little small cake ball type things. And like, I absolutely tried one of those because it looked delicious and it looked fun and it was red velvet and it's not something I'm used to having. So I'm going to try it once, but at the same time, I'm not going to have 7 of them, right? So it's all about still employing those same principles that you do on a day-to-day basis, having a little bit of fun, but just being smart. Like I've always said, you can have pretty much whatever you want to do from a food perspective with diabetes. You just have to be smart about it if you want your blood sugars to be happy. And when you're traveling internationally or domestically, but if you're traveling, you want your numbers to be good so you can be a 10 out of 10 version of yourself. So these are some of the lessons I learned. Here's some of the stories that I learned from this experience. Some good, some not so good. But if you're getting some knowledge, getting some wisdom from this podcast, definitely give us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you may be listening. I really appreciate it, and it means the world to me. And with this too, if you're like, hey, I'm struggling, I don't know how to travel and have great blood sugars, I want to be able to enjoy these things to the fullest, my team and I are here to help. We're all dietitians. We all live with type 1 ourselves. We all have exercise backgrounds, and we're here to serve you however we can. So reach out to me on Instagram, on TikTok, at manofzeel, MANOFTZEEL. And with that, I will catch you in the next episode.
Hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey.